Okay, sports fans, let's talk about cellular respiration right here. Especially, let's talk about stage one glycolysis. Now, there's three stages. There's glycolysis, there's the Krebs cycle, sometimes called the citric acid cycle, and then there's the electron transport chain. And we're going to have a video on each one. I don't think they'll be too long, but let's see where we go. All right, if you guys remember, glucose was what was made during photosynthesis, right? Glucose from photosynthesis. Now, sometimes we eat the glucose when we eat plants, and then we store it in our body, and we call those carbohydrates. That's long-term storage of glucose, kind of a complicated glucose. So the glucose can come from carbohydrates being broken down, or the glucose can come from a plant directly from photosynthesis. But one of those two routes, we end up with glucose. Glucose is glucose, either from carbohydrates or photosynthesis. Got it? Cool. All right, well, what happens to that glucose? So this is what happens. That glucose ends up becoming fructose. Okay, and to do this, it has to combine with a phosphate. And remember phosphate, we see those in the phospholipid bilayers, but the place where we've talked about it a lot lately has been ATP, and that turns out to be the case here. It is, ATP is split for energy to make this happen. The phosphate that's broken off ATP is actually combined with this glucose to make fructose. It's still a 6-carbon sugar, it just has an extra phosphate now. Okay? Excuse me. All right, so far so good, right? Not too tough. So this is kind of the middle step of this, okay? But that fructose doesn't stay fructose for very long. What happens next? Well, that fructose ends up being broken in half by an enzyme. Enzyme breaks the fructose into what? 2 pyruvic acids. Just kind of fun to say, pyruvic acid. See my fructose looks like an orange. Broken in half, still looks like an orange. But now it's pyruvic acid. But some things happen here. One of the things is that some ATP is made here. Okay, so 4 ATP to be exact are made from the energy it's released. And then the phosphates are added to this too. So that's where and some are still floating around. But part of the phosphates here, a lot of energy is released, a lot of phosphates are released, which allows for phosphates later when they're needed. But for right now, we're cool. Now you might say, okay, 4 ATP are made here. This is 2, and I should have said that, 2 ATP. Let me write that down. 2 ATP are split for energy here. 4 ATP are made here. Okay, so that gives us a net gain of 2. 4 minus 2 means that at the end of this process, we have 2 extra ATP. And that's part of what's going on. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but we'll come right back to it. But what else is going on? Well, when this breaks off, electrons are broken off here, and they're added to this molecule called NAD. And maybe I should give us a little shape there. How about a nice NAD molecule? And then when we take this NAD and we add those electrons, this NAD molecule becomes NADH, which has a little bit more energy from those electrons. So those electrons turn that NAD into NADH, making it kind of an, and what we call this now is an electron carrier. See right there, electron carrier. And that's because electrons have gone from here to here. This carries the electrons, which will meet back up with NADH. Don't you worry. But this is holding excited electrons right now. Are you with me? Okay, no one's raising their hand. I'm going to assume we're cool. All right, so back to this pyruvic acid business. What goes on here? Well, pyruvic acid, it ends up when there's no oxygen. This is kind of the end of it. Okay, when there's no oxygen, nothing else happens. You got this pyruvic acid left over. You got 4 ATP made right here, and you've used 2, so you get 2 extra ATP. Well, 2 ATP isn't very much, is it? No, it's not. But you got to realize this process going from glucose to pyruvic acid is fast. Boom, already happened. Yep, already happened. Just boom, it happened again. What? There again. Oh my gosh. Over. Every time I say over, it's happened like maybe 100,000 times. It's that fast. We're just zooming along. Glucose being turned. There, it happened again. Did you see that? Unbelievable. But so even though we don't get a lot of ATP, this happens so fast that we end up getting a lot by default. And Now, when would you need this? Well, when your cell needs energy really fast to get something done really fast. So maybe your muscles responding to some sort of emergency. It's being chased by a tiger. And so that tiger's chasing you, you got to get out of there quick. You don't have time to go through the whole process turning glucose into lots of ATP, all three stages. You need it fast. You need it now. Boom! This gets it to you. But it doesn't last very long. And we'll talk more about that in another video. But for right now, understand that it is possible to make a lot of ATP very quickly this way. Okay? But generally what happens when we have oxygen, and we call this aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. When we have oxygen, then the oxygen combine with the pyruvic acids to make a pyruvate. And we have two pyruvates. Two pyruvates. And these pyruvates are going to go on to our next stage, which is called the Krebs cycle. The pyruvic acids don't do that. Only the pyruvates do. Okay? So what do we get out of this process? Let's look at it. We get 2 ATP. We get 2 NADHs. Might be wrong about that, but I don't think so. And we get 2 pyruvates. And that's what we get from this glucose molecule. So every glucose molecule gives us these two, and these two. Okay? Not a bad deal. And where's this glucose come from? Photosynthesis and carbohydrates. Okay, I'm assuming, since no one's raising their hand, that everybody understands. But if you don't, please ask me in class about this. This is stage 1 of cellular respiration, glycolysis. Any questions? Awesome. All right, I'll see you in class tomorrow. Don't forget to do your note sheet. Have a great day. Ciao.